Okay, have a look at this. This is easily one of the most famous photos on the entire internet. But it also kicked off a huge legal battle that made people question the very definition of creativity. Today, we are going to unravel the totally bizarre and honestly brilliant case of the monkey selfie to really get a handle on the fascinating world of copyright law.
I mean, it sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? But this isn't some made-up scenario. This was a real legal question that went all the way to federal court. Seriously, if an animal creates a piece of art, who owns it? Is it the person who owns the camera? The animal itself? Or maybe nobody? This one simple question is going to push the boundaries of everything we think we know about ownership in the law.
So how do we even begin to solve this puzzle? Well, before we can jump to the final verdict, we've got to build our case. And that means we have to start with the fundamental building blocks of copyright law. Let's get the groundwork laid out.
All right, first up, let's break down some of the core concepts. You can think of these as the essential vocabulary words you absolutely need to know to speak the language of copyright. Without these, trust me, the rest of this story just won't make sense.
Let's kick things off with adaptation. So the law defines this as the creation of a similar work based upon a pre-existing work. This kind of thing happens all the time. Think about the Harry Potter books being turned into those blockbuster films, or, a musician taking a classic Beatles song and creating a whole new jazz arrangement. In both of those situations, a new work is being built on top of an existing one. This is a really key concept because it's all about how creativity grows and changes.
Now, what about geography? What exactly makes something an Indian work? The law here is super precise. It's either a work created by a citizen of India, or it's a work that was first published in India. That whole first publication thing is a really critical detail. And for movies, there's an extra rule. The producer has to be an Indian citizen. Now, this might sound like a minor technical detail, but it's absolutely crucial for figuring out which country's laws are going to apply to a creative work.
Okay, so what happens when two people create something together? Well, this is what we call a work of joint authorship. The key thing to understand here is that the contributions from each creator are basically inseparable. A great example is Lennon and McCartney writing a song for the Beatles. It's pretty much impossible to say this exact word came from John or that specific note came from Paul. Their creative work is just completely tangled together. You can't just surgically remove one person's part without totally destroying the whole song.
So we've got the rules of the game down, but who are the referees? In this next section, we're going to take a look at the copyright gatekeepers. These are the key organizations in India that are responsible for enforcing all these laws and sorting out any disputes.
This table breaks down the three main players really nicely. First, you've got the Copyright Society. Think of them like a talent agent for creators. They handle all the business stuff, like issuing licenses and making sure artists are getting paid. Then there's the Copyright Board. This is basically the courtroom for copyright. They're the judges who step in and settle disputes when creators don't see eye to eye. And finally, you have the CEAC. They're kind of like the internal affairs of the copyright world. They keep an eye on how well the whole system is working and give advice to the government on how to improve it.
But what happens when a book written in India becomes a huge bestseller in the UK? Or a song from a Bollywood movie is a massive hit in the United States? Creativity is global, right? So copyright law has to be global too. And that's exactly where international treaties come into play. So India is a signatory to a whole bunch of major international treaties, like the Berne Convention and the TRIPS Agreement you see listed here. What these agreements do is create a kind of global standard for copyright protection. It means that an author in India has their rights protected in other member countries, and creators from those countries are protected right here. It's basically a system of mutual respect that lets creativity just flourish across borders. All right, we've laid our foundation. We've got a good grasp on the key concepts of copyright. Now it's time to put all that knowledge to the test. Let's go back to the scene of the crime and finally solve the mystery of the monkey selfie.
Okay, so here's the story. Back in 2011, a photographer named David Slater is in Indonesia. He sets up his camera on a tripod, and this curious macaque monkey just wanders over. The monkey starts fiddling with the camera and in the process takes a bunch of selfies, including this now iconic shot. The photo goes viral, but the story does not end there. The animal rights group PETA actually files a lawsuit on behalf of the monkey, arguing that since the monkey was the one who physically pressed the shutter, it was the legal author of the photo. This unbelievable case ended up in a U.S. court, which was now faced with a question nobody had ever had to answer before. Can an animal actually hold a copyright? And the court's decision? Well, it was incredibly direct and left no room for doubt.
This quote from the ruling gets right to the heart of it all. The judge decided that copyright is a right that is exclusively for human beings. And since the macaque was not human, it could not legally be considered an author. And if you're not an author, well, you can't own a copyright. Simple as that. So where did that leave the photograph? I mean, if the photographer isn't the author and the monkey can't be the author, who owns it? The court's answer was pretty revolutionary: nobody. The monkey selfie was declared to be in the public domain, and what that means is that it belongs to everyone and no one all at the same time. It's totally free for anyone to use, to share, and to build on without needing permission or paying a single penny, all because it has no legal author.
And that brings us to the really big question that's kind of looming over all of us today. The monkey selfie might seem like a bizarre one-off thing, but really it's a preview of a future we are already starting to live in. With AI now able to create incredible art, write compelling stories, and compose beautiful music, we're once again facing that same fundamental question. What does it mean to be a creator? And who gets to own the future of creativity when the creator isn't actually human? That's a question our laws and our whole society are just beginning to figure out.